Hello and welcome to White Glove Reviews. In this video, I'll be giving y'all my audiobook report on The Black Prism. And The Black Prism is written by Brent and narrated by Simon Vance. And it is book one in a 5-book series called the Lightbringer series. The book itself it's set in a fantasy world, but it's a fantasy world with gunpowder and muskets. So it's kind of, I don't know actually what you'd call that, but it's still very much a fantasy world, but they just have muskets and gunpowder. Now, the premise of the book is it's about two main characters, Gavin Guile and his son Kip. Gavin Guile is the Prism in the book, and the Prism is kind of like the magician emperor of the empire, and he's supposed to be basically the most powerful drafter. The magic system is based upon light, like the light spectrum. And what happens is the people who are able to manipulate light are called drafters. And what happens is they can convert light into something called luxin, which allows them to do magic and various things, like it gives them various abilities, that kind of thing. Now, most people that can draft any color can only draft like one. And if you can draft one, you're called a monochrome. If you can draft two, you're called a bichrome. And people who can draft 3 or more colors are polychromes. And what happens is the more colors you can draft, the more flexible you are, the more abilities you have. And also, the various colors tend to have things associated with them. Like, for example, red light tends to be anger, fire, that kind of thing, and so on. Just the spectrum kind of reflects various emotion type things. Anyway, so what happens is Gavin Guile, the Prism, he can draft all the colors, and he's also, as near as I can figure, he's the only person that doesn't have a limit on how much he can draft. What happens is, if you are a drafter and you use your abilities to basically create luxin from light, you can only do it a certain amount. And as you do it more and more and more, it, for lack of a better term, it seems like it does damage to you. And what happens is the drafters, if you look at their eyes, what happens is the color they draft will break out of their iris and into the whites of their eyes. And in the book, they call this breaking the halo. And what happens is if you break the halo, you basically have drafted too much. And at this point, your choices are either you become what's called a color white, which means you kind of go farther into the drafting and it starts to warp you more and more, or you participate in this ceremony that happens once a year where it's the Prism's job to basically usher you on to the next life with a dagger. So you present yourself for sacrifice, basically. And so anyway, that's the general overview of the magic. And the first book, what happens is it starts off with Gavin basically discovering he has a son, Kip. And Kip is brought by Gavin to the pardon me. He's brought back with Gavin to the Chromaria, which is the big government organization / school that teaches drafters. And okay, a lot of stuff happens in the book and a lot of stuff happens in the series, and there are lots and lots of twists and turns. And I'm kind of nervous about what to talk about because I don't want to give away anything that would be a spoiler for later points in the book. And there were a number of things in the series that legitimately surprised me and caught me off guard. Like things went a way I was not expecting. And unfortunately, I tend to be moderately jaded when it comes to surprises and twists and turns in books. So they were pleasant surprises, but they were unexpected. So I don't want to talk too much about the actual plot of it. I'll include links in the description if you want to check them out. One thing I do want to warn you about, though, is if you're going to try the audiobook, make sure you get the Simon Vance version, because I initially started listening to a version and it was one of those like full cast audio movie in your mind kind of books. And I made it about an hour into it, and it was just, I'm not sure. There were issues with the production, and what I mean is, it had a lot of music in it, like background music and stuff, and background effects, and it seemed like the sound levels were off. Like the background music was too loud, and the voice narration was too low, and it was tough to listen to. But the Simon Vance version is excellent, so make sure you get that one. I don't know what happened with the audio movie in your mind one, but I got to tell you, I tend to avoid any of the multicast movie in your mind type things. I don't know if it makes me a purist or just kind of a stick in the mud or whatever. I tend to prefer, a single narrator, maybe two narrators, if there's like a lot of male versus female characters and maybe one of the narrators doesn't feel comfortable doing female voices. But I don't know. I'm kind of easy to please. I mean, like, every narrator doesn't have to be Jim Dale, but I mean, it's just I'd rather have a narrator that's clear and easy to understand than a bunch of fancy background music that just drowns out the dialogue. So be on the lookout and make sure that if you decide to try the Black Prism audiobooks, make sure you get the Simon Vance narrator version and not the other weird movie in your mind thing. The series is complete. It wrapped up, I want to say a few months ago as of recording this video. And, okay. When I listened to the first book, I then listened to the next three back to back to back. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was about a 2-year gap, I think, between my listening to the fourth book and my listening to the fifth book. And I enjoyed the fifth book, and the fifth book did a decent job resolving things. But I think that I would have enjoyed it more if I'd listened to it right after the fourth book. Because, like I said, there's a lot of twists and turns in this book, and I think with the twists and turns being extra fresh, just like coming off the last couple of books, it would have been better. Still good. Another thing that I want to mention while I'm thinking about it is Brent Weeks wrote a series before this one called the Night Angel series, and I'll include links in the description for that one as well. And when I listened to the Lightbringer series, the first 4 books, I enjoyed it, and so I went out and I listened to the Night Angel series as well, like after that. And the Night Angel series was written before the Black Prism, and I think he was kind of in the process of developing his writing style for the first book. And like the first book of the Night Angel series felt kind of weak when I listened to it. Still a decent story, but just not up to his later work. But as the trilogy went on, as the Night Angel trilogy went on, the books dramatically improved. Like, I think the last book in the Night Angel trilogy is comparable to, say, one of the Lightbringer series books. But it's just it was a decent story, but it's one of those things. It's like, having seen how strong his writing can be, it's like the earlier work hitting the earlier work after after Brent Weeks' more recent work. I think the earlier work kind of suffered a little bit. I think if I'd started with the Night Angel series and I'd run through like that trilogy and then I'd run into the Black Prism, I wouldn't have noticed as much of a difference. But It's still like the Night Angel series is still a decent series too, but I would say if you have to, if you're forced to pick between like the Lightbringer series and the Night Angel series, I would go with the Lightbringer series. I think the Lightbringer series is much stronger. But again, the Night Angel series not bad. Just the first, I think the early book suffers from just sort of developing a writing style kind of thing. Anyway, if you have any suggestions for any audiobooks you think I should check out, or any books in general that you like that you think I should give a shot, please let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions about anything, also let me know in the comments. I'll do what I can to help out. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And I hope y'all have an excellent day.